And welcome to Justice Serve TV. I'm Michael Bryant.
And I am Linda Kenny Bodden. And I have to tell you, Michael Bryant he was at Penny, okay, Daniel Penny, as you know, all day. And he got in with 2 minutes to go because we know that you're all waiting for everything here. And it's been quite a day trying to, as you know, we had a murder a block from my office yesterday. So I was down there. We have cases that we're doing in the office all. So yes, Missy, Michael made it. Unbelievable. The dedication that he's got here. And we're expecting a lot of people to get on. We just sent out the link and we have very special guests on it. And I'll have to explain and maybe apologize. No, I'm not going to apologize. I'll have to explain.
Why would you apologize?
Mr. Short and our other guests, why we called this a fine show. Okay. It's going to be, we had 750 people on the other night. And it ended up being kind of an inside secret. So, but here we go.
That was some of your sexism, as I recall, is what that fine comment was all about.
I don't know. There's a couple shows leading up to it. It had started with and we know that Max Shard is here, and I know you all want to see him. Maybe we should bring him on and explain why we described this as a fine show.
And I will leave that element to you. So without further ado, Max Shard, of course, you may recall a little trial that's been going on forever. Handled it, of course, for Shannon Stillwell. So let's just get that guy into the mix here. Oh, caught him mid-sip.
A hero. Perry Mason Max. Okay,
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. If my background is a little bizarre, my wife runs the house, and she had a Zoom to be on this evening too. So I got.
You lost the coin toss. Okay.
There was no coin toss.
No
coin toss, and so I'm in the basement, my little quote unquote man cave room in the basement where I have all my sports stuff.
Yeah, I thought it was looking more like a hostage video, but all right, we'll take it. We'll take it.
Always says that the best way to keep a marriage happy are 2 words: yes, dear. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. I've learned that.
Look at this, man. Everyone's starting to get on. So anyhow, let me explain to you what happened. Okay, so when you were doing this, when the state was bringing the Shannon Stillwell, your client, videos in, all right, and stills from the jail with all the tats, with them inked all up. And I said something, having had the Aaron Hernandez case where he was completely tatted from top to bottom, and the state was trying to use his tats against him, right? I said sometimes that has a very bad effect because in Aaron Hernandez, what we could hear in the background was, "Oh, he is fine," right? You know. And I said sometimes when you think you're bringing the evidence in as a state, and we were like against it, but we were like, yeah, bring it in, right? You know. And so we were like, I said it has a reverse effect because sometimes, jurors are jurors, and they looked at this specimen, right, and they said, well, he's fine. I don't know if he's a murderer, but he's fine. So this led to a discussion about your client. And then our chat took off and was like, well, he's fine too. And all the I won't say the men, but the women were like, well, and I was trying to explain, no, this is all I meant by it. But it kind of like developed a life of his own. And then you and Mr. Kokumo were like up there, and you're doing your thing. And everyone the other night was saying, oh, these are fine too. And I'm like, we're supposed to be a very serious podcast, right? Talking about law. We've had nothing but high profile cases. And the whole chat took off because of my comment about Aaron Hernandez, about evidence maybe not being what somebody wants it to be when they put it in. So I want to let you know. So we called this the fine show. Okay.
All right. There it is.
All right. There you go.
That may be the longest log line I've ever heard for any show of any kind. Hey, speaking of Mr. Kokumo, we were going to have him on as well. Is there a way we need to hook up with him or what?
Actually, let me, you know what? I'm going to.
Please don't make me go through the fine explanation again.
No.
And one thing about Shaq is as soon as he hears that word, he's just going to assume that everyone's talking about him. So I mean, it's outrageous, this man's ego. So I I just sent him the link.
Oh, great. Then, yeah, when he pops on, we will have him join because everybody was very excited to hear from both you guys. So let me just jump in here. First of all,
people can't get enough of him. Can't get enough
I know.
Of you, Max.
I know. Let me just say congratulations. What an amazing performance that we had the opportunity to witness for longer than it should have been, of course.
Right.
Let me ask you, and we have the video here because I'd like to kind of get your kind of a play-by-play, as it were, of the verdict. First of all, as Linda and I have talked about, we've received verdicts ourselves. We've watched a ton of them. I've never seen one so like, that's it. It just happened. It's over. Is that normal in
No.
Fulton County or in Georgia? I mean, it was just bizarre.
It was probably best for my mental health that it happened that way. It was, well, first of all, and I never knew this. I never sit in the courtroom waiting on a verdict. I try to stay busy, and I'm always moving about. And we had a little side room in this case where we would hang out. Mr. Botts would be asleep on the couch. We had a little green couch down, and he'd be snoring. Mr. Weinstein would be in there, and he's a big social media guy, so he'd be doing whatever he's doing, and I'd be working on cases, and that's what we were doing for 4 days. But on that particular day, there was a status hearing for the rest of the co-defendants that weren't on the first trial with us. So a lot of these young men I met when we first started the case, and there weren't severances yet. So it was kind of like a reunion. I got to see some of the guys I hadn't seen in a year and a half, and they knew I'd been fighting for Shannon. So we were just exchanging pleasantries, and I was just really being nosy about what was going to happen with this second wave of this case. And then a light turned on, and you know the light outside the jury room. What I never knew, because I've never been in the courtroom, at least in Fulton County, there's different color lights. So there's a yellow light that's a verdict, and a blue light that is a question. I never knew that.
Wow, that's very sophisticated. I've not really seen that.
California had that.
And it may not even be true. This is just what I was told. So the prosecutor, this prosecutor that's a very nice guy, his name's Adam Abadi. He came in towards the end of the case to try to salvage it. He turns to me and says, "Oh, don't worry, it's a blue light. It's a question." So the judge kind of shifted everyone away from that status hearing and brought us back in to take center stage. But the whole time I thought it was just a question. So the judge just kind of like matter-of-factly says, Judge Whitaker is holding a piece of paper, and she says, "Well, we have a verdict." And I was like, "What?" And then she said, "We actually have 2 verdicts." And then it just all happened so fast after that. And then, of course, she said, "Mr. Stillwell, you've been found guilty of count 64. And of course, I know the discovery in and out, and I know the indictment in and out. But in that moment, I had no idea what count 64 was because my brain had just up. So it made sense. Like, that was the only standalone charge that you would really think he would just be convicted of 1 count. So I was pretty certain that was the gun, but I had to go over to Doug Weinstein and say, "Do you have the indictment? Count 64 is the gun, right?" And he was like, "Yeah." And he said, "I think so." And I was like, "Oh my goodness." But it was. And that was a count that I didn't even address at closing. I mean, you guys know how it works. If, my guy's facing life without times 2, life without parole times 2, plus, if you add up all the other charges, 150, 200 years. And that gun, I didn't feel we had a great argument for the gun. So my strategic decision was not to blow my credibility with the jury arguing about this gun that's registered to his girlfriend that's found, 100 yards from where he's arrested, and just kind of don't even address that. So that's how I know the jurors really scrutinized everything. They didn't just go in there and say, "Oh, we're just finding Mr. Stillwell not guilty because, we think he's great looking or because his attorney fought for him or whatever. They went through everything and they found him guilty of that one gun charge, which is the charge that I didn't even address in closing. So
yeah. I mean that's smart, and it's one of those deals where that's a win. If that's where they get, that's a win. Hey, Linda, should we look at the verdict here and let it roll out for a couple of minutes? Because I really
one second, only because Max did say credibility, and I love the fact he said that, because we discussed that over and over in the show. As a defense attorney, all you have is your credibility and your likability, right? That's it. And so that you don't want to, it's something that's so ridiculous that could turn a jury against you. You're not going to do it because the prosecutors, let them do that.
Right. And in this particular case, the jury needed to be able to trust me on a lot of things. We had to deal with the music, the lyrics, the reliability of certain witnesses. So I really needed them to at least be open to the fact that I'm bringing, a realistic truth to them, and it worked out. And it was a great jury. They clearly took their role seriously. And Judge Whitaker, the other thing is, I mean, you all know, you go to trial, we all pretend it doesn't exist, but there's that trial tax element to it. And, a lot of judges will be like, okay, you went to trial, you're found guilty, you get the maximum. I knew that Judge Whitaker, just based on the way she saw the case against Jeffrey Williams when he entered a non-negotiated plea and she gave him probation, I knew that 10 years, even though my client was a recidivist, it didn't all have to be to serve. And I knew she knew that. She's a very smart jurist. And I knew that she was going to have an open mind to feel like I don't need to max him out, or I don't need to give him the maximum because he beat these other charges, but I'm still going to hold it against him. She was very true to what, her role was. And I really appreciate that, because it would have been very easy for her to just give him 10 years to serve. But she gave him 10 to do 2, commuted to time served, or credit for the time he's already done, and probation. So
yeah, she was very consistent,
right?
Which is nice to be able to rely on that. Okay, Linda, can I do this now?
Right. Yes, okay. yes.
I just, we've been in this position before. We know the jury's coming in, so I'm checking you out to see how you're checking them out. And so I just want to look at this and get some of your play-by-play if we can. And we can talk over this. We know what's happening here.
Sure.
The jury, I don't think, has come back in just yet. So at this point, you know now that it's not a question.
I don't think I realize it yet. I think at this point, I'm still thinking it's a question.
Wow.
And the interesting thing that happens, and you'll see it, is the verdict form was misstated.
All right, good morning, everybody.
For Mr. Kendricks.
How so?
Well, they had on, what day was it? I think it was the 3rd that the verdict came back.
Oh, they had the 2nd on it because apparently they had decided his fate earlier.
They had already cleared him. And I sensed that the focus, I think they were focusing on the 2015 homicide that Mr. Kendrick was accused of with Mr. Stillwell, and then moved on to Shannon's other stuff. But the fact that they came back a day early for Mr. Kendrick, for whatever reason, made me feel good about it, because I knew that if he was acquitted of the 2015 case, we were tethered. So if one was acquitted, the other one would be acquitted. And I also felt that if they thought my client was guilty of that 2015 case, they probably wouldn't have spent another day worrying about everything else. So in my mind, I'm thinking when it comes up, they put yesterday's date on Kendrick. I think they found him not guilty. I think then I'm just worried about the 2022 case, which I felt the video spoke for itself, and I felt good about that.
Interesting, because we had a show on that night. We were saying, does the jury know, and I don't know if this is the case in Georgia, that they could come back if they have a verdict on one of the defendants, they could come back and say, hey, we have a verdict on one defendant. Does that happen in Georgia? Because I know in some places that is the case. And that's what it felt like. It felt like they had a verdict on him on Monday.
Right. I don't, in my experience, it's not until you get to the mistrial, the point of like Allen charges or kind of the hung jury scenario that sometimes you realize, well, we're not hung on everything. Because I've had another case where things worked out for my client and didn't work out for the co-defendant. And I was waiting for a verdict for like 3 days, sweating. And then I talked to a juror afterwards. He called me and we just talked about it. And he was like, no, we found your client not guilty in like 20 minutes. And I was like, well, dang, y'all could have given me a sign or something, because I was sweating for 3 days. But in my experience, they just keep deliberating and move on to and don't really give an indication. I don't know. That might be a judge.
Take 10 years off your life. Take 10 years
really.
off your life by doing that, really.
Yeah, really.
That was
you're going to continue on?
I want to get to the spot here where it starts to, like you're checking out the folks as they come in, and I can see it in your face that, you're looking for anything, any sort of indication. Are they looking at my guy? Are they avoiding his look? What's going through your mind right now?
So I'm looking for eye contact. In my experience, and this might be a Southern thing, usually there's an older woman that will look at me if things are good, and she'll just give me a little nod and a smile and kind of like, it'll be okay. And that's always been my experience. I made slight eye contact with one person. No one was giving anything away. But I will say, in this case, the jurors had been with us.
Thank you very much.
With Shannon for a year plus, without even counting jury selection and all that. I would think what was going through my mind is, if they're about to send Shannon away, I would expect to see some emotional distress. Everyone seemed very relaxed. I thought that was a good sign.
That's interesting. Okay, let's hear, and it happens in a flash, the actual verdict.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I understand that you all have reached a verdict. Mr. Foreperson, is that correct? All right. And was it unanimous? All right. And this verdict has been filled in and signed and dated by you, correct? For each defendant. All right. And I noticed that Mr. Kendrick's verdict form is dated December 2nd. Is that because that's when you all reached the verdict with regard to him? Okay. And then Mr. Stillwell's is dated today. Okay. All right. Mr. Kendrick, you have been found not guilty on all charges.
Now, at this point, what were you thinking?
Well, I was happy for Mr. Kendrick and Doug, and I took it as a good sign, because it's a unique situation when you're representing someone that's charged with two separate and distinct homicides. Like, I think we can all agree that's probably not where you typically want to start a case. And especially if they were tried individually, they probably wouldn't be relevant to each other. And so I was happy for Doug and Diamante, obviously, but I'm very nervous at this moment.
And did it seem to you that, oh my gosh, it just happened for them? It just seemed so strange.
Well, it definitely happened very quickly, and that caught me off guard. Like, I'm probably looking right now like, wow, that's it? What? Because I'm still processing we have a verdict.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's see how that unfolds. I don't want to spoil it for anybody.
Mr. Stillwell, can you please stand?
He's up before you are.
You have been found guilty on count 64, possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, and not guilty on every other charge.
Yep.
Really, Max? He was like up like a flash. I mean, you were like, I'm still down here in the seat.
So, ladies and gentlemen of the jury,
And there's
you are officially released from
the
further
hug heard around the
service,
world
and I
right there. We've had so many people suggest that they were, tearing up watching this hug. How did that feel at that moment?
I mean, I don't really know how we stayed vertical because he was kind of like melting butter and I was like a melting gummy bear. So we were kind of like had no structure and we're kind of just falling into each other. But and then quickly I had to figure out because I knew there was a conviction for one count and I anticipated that. And so then I had to figure out what the plan was for sentencing pretty quickly. And the reality is, I don't like to get into specifics, but I can say generally, we were never given a plea offer that was even remotely palatable. We were the only party that was not given any sort of plea offer that could even be considered. Wow. So, and really that made my life easier and selfishly, because it's something liberating when you don't have to give your client advice on the unknown of what a jury's going to do, and all you got to do is charge forward and fight. So that actually was good, but the part that became a little complicated is in that plea offer that we were given, it was always understood, this was decades and decades in prison, the plea offer. It was always understood that there was going to have to be some accommodations for his safety. And, I was envisioning if he were going to have to be incarcerated, he was going to be somewhere in New Hampshire or something far, far away because it's just very dangerous for him in Georgia. So that's when I switched to the sentencing, and I you'll see me approach, and that's where I wasn't certain if we needed to delay sentencing, and it kind of turned into a filibuster where I was kind of saying the same thing again and again, which was if you're going to sentence him to prison, we can't do it today. We need to get things in place, and I kept saying it over and over again. And then finally I got an indication, don't worry about it. And then that's when I shut up and went back to my seat and I whispered to Shannon, I think it's going to be okay, buddy.
Wow. That's something we didn't see.
I think Mr. Kokumo might be in the waiting room.
Yeah, I see him. And let's tee him up here and talk about his role in all of this because it's something.
You can see there's one of our, there goes. All you need to do is let Kokumo sit up front and center. I think Mr. Kokumo. Hi, Mr. Kokumo.
Hi, Mr. Kokumo.
We've been watching you.
I've been keeping up with everything that y'all have been saying. So
let me make you feel comfortable, Mr.
Doug's been carrying your weight here and talking about how great you guys every time he's been on. So
I know. Let me make you feel comfortable, Mr. Kokumo. Mr. Kokumo, do you have that ready? Do we have? Is that good for you? Do we have that yet? Do you have that one for you? I was down there for just a few days, just a blip in terms of the total trial time. I think I heard your name more than anybody else's the whole time.
I think you heard correct.
And I'm confident that without you, the whole weight of the defense team would have collapsed on itself. So congratulations for your skill set there and helping these guys get to the finish line.
And I know you just missed the whole discussion about fine. Okay, so besides your trial skills, our viewers have been like commenting about you. Just so you know, you can see one of them right there. So. It doesn't help it helps to have a good smile and to be likable and credible in a trial court.
As yourself. Thank you so much.
For those who may not know, give us how did this relationship evolve, and how did you get where you are, and what's your plan going forward? What has this experience taught you?
So in terms of my like how I started and everything, I've known Max for about 7 going on to 8 years now. I worked at the Fulton County Public Defender's Office when I was around 17, going on to 18 years old.
He was a summer intern. He was a summer intern. Let's clarify.
I was a summer intern. Yep.
Wow.
No, my apologies. I was a summer intern around going into 18, and I was paired with different attorneys, but the one attorney that did stick out to me during my whole experience was Max. Max was such a great defense attorney that, like, it was, watching him win cases, watching him go to his hearings and stuff. It was honestly a driving force to me wanting to be an attorney. So as the years went on, I went on to undergrad, and I went to Georgia State. So I would always run into Max here and there and be like, "Oh, Max, what you got going on?" Watching him walk to the courthouse and everything. And then now Max contacted me, I think over the summer last year, and said, "Hey, Brian and I and some of the other attorneys might need your help on this trial. If you're free, hands-on stuff, and this journey has honestly been amazing, nothing short of amazing."
So
I can't imagine. I mean, I can't imagine this, right?
Yeah, and Shaq modestly left some stuff out, but Shaq, we did meet at the public defender's office, and I think what really happened, I wasn't some great attorney. I think there was 3 young men, and I think I bought them all lunch the first day, and I don't think he went to a bunch of other attorneys. I remember it was just the 3 young men just followed me around for a summer, and everyone called them my children. And so Shaq was one of my quote unquote children, but the thing about Shaq is, and I think it's young people in general, but especially Shaq, he's good at a lot of different things. Shaq is amazing with the camera, photography. He knows how to do websites. He knows how to do music. He knows a lot of people. So I did see him around Georgia State, but what also happened is when I decided to open my own firm, I was like, why don't I get Shaq to do some of the creative stuff, the photography for my website, making my website, and different promotional materials, stuff like that. And then Shaq became more and more serious about law school. And then lo and behold, the timing just worked out perfectly because the indictment came down. One of another jack of all trades that worked in Brian Steele's office, was going to law school. So we needed a replacement for him. His name's Griffin Lale, great young man. And so then I said to Brian, I know this guy named Shaq. And he was like, "Would you recommend Shaq?" I was like, "Yeah, I think so. Yeah." But then as soon as Brian met Shaq was the greatest guy in the world to Brian. And I said, "Brian, calm down. Shaq's not that guy." So it just happened that quickly. And so within 2 weeks, Mr. Kokumo is in court with us. It just happened that quickly. And it did become kind of a running joke with me and Brian, a competition of who could say Mr. Kokumo the most in court.
I noticed it. Linda, did you notice the note suggesting that Max is doing these interviews because he's going to, Shaq's going off to law school, and he's kind of trying to wean himself from missing Shaq so much.
And then he wants to prevent him. He wants to do interviews with him for 2 years so he can't go to law school. They're not going to let you go, Shaq.
Selfishly, I'm pushing Georgia State. I want to keep Shaq around.
Well, that was interesting. You mentioned Brian Steele because I passed, and I one question that was up there was, how did you all feel then when Brian Steele, when you had Judge Glanville, was sentenced to jail by Judge Glanville. What was going on everyone's mind? What happened? I mean, we had Ashley Merchant on, so we know from her, because Ashley's been a friend of mine for a long time. We've done TV commentary together. But she represented, I guess, Brian to the court. But what did you feel like? What was going on?
Shaq, were you there that day?
So my sister Khadijah, she went to Northwestern University. She had the same day it happened was the same day she was walking down the stage. So all I remember is like my sister's name being called, and now we're just waiting for all the other students to be called. And I get a text message saying, "Hey, is Brian okay?" from Brian's office. And I'm like, I mean, I'm not in court right now. What's going on? So I check on the law and crime. And I like get on the part where I see like the judge yelling at Brian, letting him know he's in contempt, and I'm just like, "Wow, what just happened? What I miss?"
So, my take on that, Brian was very, Brian's gift is he sees issues before other people see issues. That's one of his gifts. So he was standing his ground, and I didn't initially fully comprehend the importance of it. I was told, along with, we all had a meeting about what happened in the ex parte. It was not just Brian, it was other attorneys there, including myself. Once I realized that Brian was, standing up for himself, and this was going to be kind of we're not going to move on this issue. And nor should we have. I just didn't realize how important it was at the time. It just became clear. I thought we were all going to get arrested, to be honest with you, because all the people that were at the meeting about the ex parte meeting where it was leaked. So because once Brian wouldn't give up the source, I thought Keith Adams was going to go next, and he was going to get arrested, which would meant that trial couldn't go on because Jeffrey wouldn't have an attorney in court. And then I was going to be called next because I was there and I was not going to give it up, and I was going to be arrested. That's how I thought it was going to play out. But I saw Brian standing up, and then I just remember all of a sudden he's handing me his belongings, and I'm like, wait, is this really happening? So then I started texting his wonderful wife, Colette, and saying, Colette, you need to get things in motion. And then she was back at the office, and she just mobilized everyone very quickly to stop that from happening.
It's odd because
unbelievable. I mean, we're as attorneys were watching.
The underlying reason for those actions was weird enough. The ex parte meeting, that was bizarre enough. But to see it spiral out of control into what looked like to most observers, certainly to us, was that Glanville was mad he got caught with his hand in the cookie jar, and he was going to punish Brian Steele for outing him on that. It was outrageous.
Right. And when I look back now, it wasn't obvious at the time, but that was a turning point in the case. I mean, obviously it eventually led to another judge, but beyond that, this case wasn't always looked at exactly as it's looked at now. In the beginning, the state put out a narrative that our guys were monsters. That was before the case even started. And we were responsible for all this stuff that's happened in Atlanta. And so the public, of course, Mr. Williams, the superstar that he is, he had a following, but the public really wasn't as involved. But when that happened, the tone of everything changed. And I mean, you all know from doing cases, you can't quantify it when the public's behind you. You don't know how exactly it's helping, but you feel it, and you feel like that momentum is, and that wind is behind you. And at that point, everything changed. And I was like, you know what, we're gonna do this. So that was a big moment.
Yeah.
It really, it felt like that to us. It was, I mean, I was calling for Judge Glanville to be disrobed. I mean, I make no bones about it because I'm fearless. And if you're going to put me in jail from New York City or New Jersey, fine, put me in jail. You can't take away my license. It was so outrageous, I think, to lawyers. And it's the first time I felt on social media that non-lawyers are getting behind lawyers. And that's why I call this case the Perry Mason moment of cases, that you all have brought some credibility back to defense lawyers, that now defense lawyers are the hero. And I think that's a huge side effect of this case, that you don't realize how much, you've done. And the fact that, you have to always be willing to go to jail for your client, right? And Brian Steele was. And I think it sounds like you guys right behind him were planning on sharing the same cell.
Right. Well, it's easy for me to say.
And I don't know if you know how big it
is. And when he got up there, I knew it was coming. I said, Brian's about to ask to be locked up with Jeffrey, isn't he? And then he said it. And that was it right there. That was beautiful. He said,
and by the way, thanks to Here Comes Drama, who is basically thanking you guys for the work that you did and for, chatting with us for just a few minutes. We appreciate it. To that point, Max and Shaq, I'm sure you noticed this as well. I felt like the case became more about what the hell's going to happen next than the merits or lack of merits of any of the causes of action and charges against the different defendants. It was like, this is must-see TV because this is just bizarre land here. And so I don't know if the jury felt the same way or not. If they may have sensed it earlier than that. What do you think?
I think that the state got off to a slow start. I don't want to say too much because there's other young men who are going to be facing trial, but I think that the case got too big. And as defense attorneys, I mean, New York, you know what RICO and how RICO came about and what it was designed for, and this was
right.
This was a stretch, but a lot of attorneys complain about it and say, "Oh, well, it's wrong." Well, they did it, and so the only thing we could do at that point, complaining wasn't going to get us anywhere. We just needed to make it as painful as we could for them to proceed on the path that they chose. And I think we did that. The RICO aspect of this backfired. And I hope moving forward that RICO is not used in this way. And I hope the message is sent that this is not the way it should be used. And it won't be successful if you overreach into, young men just hanging out together and committing individual crimes. Because it wasn't a RICO enterprise. But no one's going to stop the state from charging that unless we make it painful. And I think we made it very painful for the state to go down this route again. And the word I've been given.
Didn't they dismiss some cases today against?
Well, that's what I was about to say. I think.
Go ahead.
I think that shows it right there. Is with this second wave of defendants that are theoretically the second wave of this trial, they null pros six RICO charges today because they didn't want to deal with the same type of situation again.
So, Shaq, are you going to do?
I took a. Go ahead, Michael.
Oh, I was going to ask Shaq.
Go ahead, Michael.
I assume he's going into criminal law, but you never know. You never know what's coming down the path. Is that the plan as you sit here today?
Right now, yes, that is the plan. Sticking with honestly, kind of the same path that Max took, and as well as Brian, both starting off as public defenders, building their repertoire, building their image, and building their knowledge in criminal law. I think that's the plan with me right now.
what if you were to, you know, go over to the dark side and learn from the prosecution? But do you think that might help you down the road? Bring some sense to the prosecution?
Funny story. The year before I started working on this case, I was a summer intern at the Fulton County DA's office under the district attorney.
Oh, has that gotten out? Has that gotten out? That's so.
I mean, if it hasn't been out, it's out now.
But I encouraged him to do that. I encouraged him to do that because in I've never been a prosecutor, and I don't hold it against anyone if they have been, but I think that being a prosecutor, the skills you learn and the way you learn to look at a case and discussions you have around the office, I think those things that you learn can definitely be utilized on the defense side when you choose to go that route. So I think that there's value in that, and I encouraged Shaq to intern with the DA's office. I think that was a good idea. So,
yeah,
we have to stop you a second. Black Butterfly. Don't forget, Shaq knows how to play a video in reverse, unlike the state. Tell us about that. Tell us about that.
So
you can tell the
they wanted the video played in reverse, right?
So honestly, when
okay, we're getting the true story. I'm sitting up. Yeah.
When that question came, I think that was and I asked one of the jurors when we went back there to talk to them, what was the reason behind the question? So when it first, the question first came out and the state was kind of having trouble doing it, I personally am good with a lot of digital stuff. I have throughout this whole trial and able to look at discovery, get video footage that's easier for the team to read. There was a lot of software issues and stuff. I downloaded a lot of softwares to be able to kind of battle all the difficulties and make sure it's easy for all the attorneys to view. One of the softwares allowed me to play a video in reverse. So I went up to Max and I was like, hey, Max, not trying to help the state, not trying to hurt the defense. I can play this video in reverse perfectly. Just let me know if that's something you want me to do.
Wow.
And then
so and I was watching the state struggle with it, and I let them struggle with it for like a minute. But my whole thing, and I looked at Shaq kind of funny because I was like, Shaq, that video is not going to show anything in reverse that doesn't show forward. It shows that our client's innocent. So yeah, we're gonna play the video. Reverse, sideways, forward, back, high speed, low speed. We'll do it when zoomed in. We're gonna play the video. So I let them try to figure it out for the state. And then I said, Judge, I think Mr. Kokumo can play the video. And then he took care of it. We weren't scared of the video, but I appreciate Shaq checking with me first, but we weren't scared of the video.
It was a pretty sophisticated question.
Great story. Right? That's a great story. You let them dangle in the wind, right? You let them dangle in the wind. We also have I have to tell you that Here Comes Drama, one of our members on the channel. Thank you, Max and Shaq, for joining us tonight. We appreciate all you do in the name of justice. Whoa. And that's great. We also have that Here Comes Drama gifted 5 Justice Serve memberships.
That's nice.
And Liam is also, if you're ever staring down the state with years of My Liberty in the balance, you guys can't do any better than Max. Congratulations. I mean, everybody loves you. They love you both. They love you. Now, let me tell you who I don't love. The state. Now, Michael, I took this personally, right? Michael and Brian knows me. I took this a little bit personally. And I have a little connection to you guys because I did teach back in 2019, just before the pandemic started in Georgia. With the Georgia Public Defenders Council, the Southern Center for Human Rights and Innocence Project on making Harper motions. So I felt like I had met people in Georgia, the defenders, and I really felt like I could never be for the prosecution in this case. My heart was with the defenders. But when I saw the closing statements, and Michael, can you put up?
I do have that for you.
Of the closing statement.
I want to make sure I have the right one here.
Just the prosecutor, not that.
Okay, well, one of them has this.
It's the one that just has the one line on it.
That's
not
it.
the jacket.
Okay. I'm trying to take
Right,
your direction
that's
there,
it.
boss.
Okay.
Okay. Now hold on here. Let's see if I can
Okay.
get that back here. Hold on. I think I do have it. I think I do. There. Is that it? Can you see it?
There you go. That was the
Yeah,
first
okay.
slide, if I recall, guys, right? That the prosecutor opened up with on the
Mhm.
closing statements, right? Seek the truth. I went through my seat. I went up to the ceiling. I went down to the ceiling because, as I said, I teach this all the time. Let me show you my first slide on the mistrial of the Phil Spector case, where we first tried it for almost 6 months and state didn't get a conviction. Let me just show you that first
Okay,
slide.
hold on a second. And I think if I somehow
That's the prosecution.
yeah, and if I somehow got I think I might have kicked Shaq out of the operation here. Sorry. Come back, Shaq. While I'm trying to
I think he's
find,
here.
there he is.
He's there. He's there.
Okay.
He's on the
I'm going to try and put an I'm
There
putting
he
another
is, on the
graphic
bottom
on
row.
here.
So you got the
stand
second
by.
slide. Okay.
Stand by. I need a Shaq is what I need.
I was gonna say, hey, if you need help, man, I'll come.
Can I get my own Shaq here, please? Okay, let's see if I can find this other one. Okay,
Yeah.
I know I've lost all the momentum of your great story here. Sorry. Okay, and then we have this one. I think. There we go. And I think Shaq's gone again, but he'll be back.
So
okay.
So it's the same.
Okay.
Slide.
This is my first slide on the Phil Spector. Okay. So if a prosecution can steal a PowerPoint theme and a slide from another high profile case and another high profile defense attorney, let me tell you, I think that the great summation would have been they can mislead you on anything, because isn't stealing one of the counts they had and theft as a RICO claim? Well, here's the prosecution. I think they should be charged with RICO. You can tell that story because that's my slide. That's my theme that got me the hung jury in the Phil Spector trial, from which Helen Mirren is right behind me. She played me in a movie and got the SAG award, but that's another story. But someone said, well, you should be flattered. I said, I'm not flattered. I'm not flattered. Okay. I'm pissed. Just so you guys know. All right. You don't need to comment.
Was that the so that was
go to JL.
That was the rebuttal part of their closing? Would they start with Seek the Truth, or was that
no? That was the opening. That's what they opened. That was the opening of their closing. That was the first slide. I think it was Atkins used on the closing, and I went, "Wait, I've seen that before, and it's in blue too." Okay,
maybe somebody was in your class.
So I mean. I went back. I actually looked at the PowerPoint for the class that I taught all this. I did not use that slide in that Georgia PowerPoint. Okay. But I've taught it with other classes. But clearly, it just dropped from the tree. All right. In blue, Seek the Truth as the first slide with the only 3 letters across it. So I thought you'd get a kick about it because, I mean, that's the kind of prosecutors that you have, in my opinion. When I saw that, I was everything I've been feeling about prosecutors, and I was one, by the way, but I was honest.
Let me just say this, and first of all, Shannon has a couple other matters I've had that are pending, besides the RICO case that is now closed. I've had very productive conversations with the prosecutors that are dealing with those cases, and I'm anticipating a resolution sometime next week that will get Shannon out of custody. I'm hopeful for that, but that is one of the reasons that I'm making sure that all of us stay very humble about our victory. That being said, some of the prosecutors, I feel bad for some of the prosecutors in this case, because Mr. Atkins is an absolute sweetheart. He is an absolute sweetheart. Ms. Hilton, me and Ms. Hilton, we've butted heads on one case in particular where I felt that an injustice was being done. But overall, my relationship with Ms. Hilton has always been positive, and I appreciate her as a colleague. And Mr. Abate, who came in late, he's done so much for my clients that have needed help, like speeding the process along on a case that needs to be dismissed. And he's someone that I can call, and he cuts through the red tape and seeks justice. So, I just want to be clear that, and Mr. Smith, Demetrius Smith, he was another prosecutor that was on the case, and he was very gracious. And many of the prosecutors came and shook my hand afterwards and congratulated me. So I'm just very careful to point out that although many people, not just me, think that this prosecution was rotten, I don't think all the prosecutors involved were rotten. So I just want to be very clear on that.
Yeah. And I think, and I wouldn't ask for
we
your
know that
response
you're in
to
that
this,
position,
but I think
we as commentators, right?
well, the focus
No, I
is certainly on
understand.
one particular person that may have tainted the rest of the team, and
Yes.
I'll leave it at that. I don't want you to have to get yourself in a bind there. Hey, JL has an interesting kind of a evidentiary question here, saying that in previous cases watched, they've had authentication experts, he or she calls them. Think about some of the video, Shaq, to your expertise. And I guess JL's challenging whether or not they laid the foundation properly or had the authentication experts they should have on the prosecution in this case. What do you think?
Well, in Georgia, the authentication requirements are pretty relaxed. I don't know in other jurisdictions. For surveillance, you don't need the person who's in charge of the surveillance system. You just really need someone that was there to say it's an accurate representation of what happened on that date at that time. So the rules on those sort of authentication issues are fairly relaxed. So I didn't view any issues with that. And I'm trying to remember, I think with many of the surveillance videos, they actually did bring in a representative from the store. And quite honestly, if they approached me,
You stick to that.
I wouldn't have, because there was issues. A big part of the case, and it never really, sometimes you're planning on something being a big issue, and it never really becomes that big an issue. A big issue with the case for me was that all the different surveillance systems are not linked up with each other. So when you're saying something on the wiretap happened at 9:59, that doesn't mean that's happening at 9:59 on the surveillance system from the BP or from the FedEx. So that was important to have those people come in and just clarify that everything was not synced up. Ultimately, that wasn't a big deal, but if the state did certain things that I thought they might do, I was going to have to use that stuff. You know how it is. Sometimes you're laying the foundation for something, and then you never have to use it. So that there was some questions I asked that probably people are wondering why was he so obsessed with that now? But it was just something that I didn't have to use.
So was there a specific turning point you think for your clients at all your client? And also I'm going to put Doug's client into this, since you were kind of tethered into the murder counts there. Was there a turning point that you just felt it, that the jury was with you?
I felt this wasn't televised. We had to listen to the same. Judge Glanville read the indictment. In Georgia, the prospective jurors have to hear the indictment read. Judge Glanville read the indictment. It took 4 hours, 4.5 hours. We taped it. And so every time we got prospective jurors in, a batch of like 100 or 200, we'll say, they had to play this tape. This was before jury selection. That indictment, when you hear for 4.5 hours, guns, homicide, guns, drugs, guns, because he's reading all the overt acts as well. And all these lyrics, killing 12, killing this, doing that. I was like, wow, if we get through this part, it'll be okay. And I think so much time passed with jury selection, maybe, that the effect of just hearing all of that at once dissipated. By the time we gave opening statements, I didn't feel like, I felt like the jurors were completely open-minded and there with us. They were welcoming and gave, friendly facial expressions, and you know how it is. They seemed engaged when I was giving my opening. So as far as I was concerned, once we got through the enormity of the allegations and the jurors were still with us, I knew that they weren't going to be able to prove everything they were claiming. We just need to get over that initial shock. And then also a big moment in the case, I think none of us knew how Woody was going to play out. None of us knew. We knew that there was tapes with people saying very harmful things that were not true, but we didn't know how it was going to play out. We didn't know if Woody, what he was going to say, if he was going to say anything at all. But, Kenneth Copeland, and I've said this to several people, I went at Kenneth Copeland hard, probably harder than any witness I've ever gone at. I basically accused him of murder. But Kenneth was very important in this case because he was able to articulate not only to the jurors, but I think to America, exactly what happened in this case. And it was a young man who's admittedly willing to lie about anything. And then the police, when they grab him to arrest him, and we have this horrible jail at 901 Rice Street, and Kenneth will do anything to stay out the jail. And we heard all the threats and we heard all the veiled promises. And he was able to articulate that in a way and put everyone in his mind to explain why he would say these things. And, it was an odd testimony for sure, but he was almost like the perfect vessel to bring that message. And I thought that was a big moment in the case.
Did you feel the jurors were involved with him, or were they laughing at him, or what? Because we were all talking about how little Woody was our favorite witness. We've never seen anyone be able to turn questions around like he could turn questions around as supposedly the snitch.
Right. And I think he had a level of sophistication under the surface and a level of charm, oddly enough, that kept the jurors engaged and kept them listening to what he was trying to tell them. It's scary when you think about it, because really the whole case was two witnesses that were essentially doing the same thing. They were two witnesses that hated jail, were scared to be in jail. One of them had severe physical health issues that he might not even be able to survive in jail. And they're both facing 1,000,001 years. And they both have police officers saying, help us help you. We're going to call the prosecutor as soon as we're done with this meeting. You're facing, if you don't help, you'll never see your children. It'll be 25 years, no parole. You won't see your daughters till you're 49, or till they're 49, or he's 49, or whatever it was. And so it was like two witnesses that were kind of manipulated in the same way, but there was no real police work. It was all just kind of like sitting down with people in trouble and turning on a camera and then kind of threatening them and letting them run with it. And so once Kenneth explained kind of how that works, there wasn't really a lot to that case, that 2015 case. And so I thought he was a very important witness.
And it seems like the jury saw through all of that, that you know, they were not connecting the dots the prosecution wanted them to connect.
Right.
You know, and it's always enlightening to talk to the jurors after the fact, because you never know what resonates, what gets lost, what they're really focusing on. Am I doing a good job? And what did I miss? These jurors seem like they were tracking right along with you guys.
They took their role seriously. And, you know, I was having a tough, you know, I don't know if anyone's read the discovery more than I have. And I was having trouble tracking the way some of these things supposedly fit in. So when I was looking at the jurors and a lot of times they weren't taking notes. So I was kind of like, how's this? They're lost right now. And so I didn't really understand how this was all going to come together in the end. And I think, you know, I saw an interview with some of the jurors and they didn't really understand how it was supposed to come together either, ultimately. So.
Yeah. I mean, Linda, you remember when we were covering this for Law and Crime, when the thing first started, I would quite often, I'd say, I don't know what the hell's going on. I don't know. I don't know what they're trying to prove. I don't know where the connections are. It just seemed like this giant basket of RICO was having all this crap thrown into it, and then leaving it to the jury to somehow connect it up to a crime. And I kept wondering about all these lesser events from years ago that were not charged as individual crimes. Now it's time to use those to convict these guys of this larger RICO proposition.
Right. And that's the other thing. Like you. Oh, go ahead.
I don't want to cut anybody off. I do have to run. I just wanted to say it's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for bringing me on here, guys.
Hey, thank you, buddy. I know, Max, I know you guys said you had an hour, so I don't want to hold you over time.
I'm very protective of Shaq. He's in Miami. Behave yourself, Shaq.
Well, good luck with everything in the future, buddy. You've got a great education, and I expect big things from you. So enjoy the ride.
It's been amazing. I hope to be great attorneys like yourselves. Please, thank you so much.
See you, buddy.
Take care, man. Hey, Max, I know we're going to kick you loose, but before we do, where do you go after this? I mean, after this experience, what's the plan? Are you going to get a breath? Are you going to take some time off? Where are you?
No, you know, I took a day off and I got my energy back. So I have some clients in Rice Street right now that are waiting, especially homicide cases that have been waiting. And I'll tell you what, the judges, at least in Fulton County, but really all over, have been so understanding about the situation. They know where I've been, and so they haven't been giving me a hard time. But my clients, man, I go into 901 Rice Street, and I'm just like, I know I'm working hard for Shannon, right? But I go in there to talk to some of my other clients, and I'm like just walking in there like, man, I am so sorry that this is happening, and you're sitting in 901 Rice Street. I can't get you a bond, and you're just waiting for me to finish someone else's case. And my clients almost universally are like, dude, I'm watching you on TV every day. You're awesome. Don't worry about it. You got me when you get me. And I'm just like, you know, and the level of grace and understanding that my clients have shown me, you know, I just really can't just, you know, take a lot of time off because I got to get to them now.
Understood.
But
I just have two questions kind of like on that. Were you surprised? There's really one A, one B. Number one, were you surprised when Michael Bryan kept saying it was the off ramp, when the jurors were brought back after everything happened and we have Judge Whitaker in, that they didn't take that off ramp and want to get out of the case, that they said they wanted to continue? And the second thing is, what was your reaction when the juror who had sent a note to Judge Whitaker that he felt the state had blown their ability to have any respect for fairness became the foreperson?
So my recollection of that note, first of all, Juror 56. Juror 56 was an interesting. I try to make it a point to make eye contact with all the jurors somewhat equally. There was something about Juror 56 with me. Like when I get up in front of them, I kept going back to Juror 56. He was just had a friendly face, and it was just like where my eyes would go. And so I thought, I had a feeling he would be the foreperson, and I thought he was someone that was leaning our way. But then, while we're waiting on a verdict, I was like, maybe I've misread this. Maybe when he was complaining about the amount of time that the state was taking, he was saying, oh, well, they've already proven their case. Can they just wrap it up? And so we can go ahead.
Wow.
So I started second guessing that. Now that wasn't the case, but you know how it is. You're reading tea leaves, and sometimes you're like, well, maybe it's something else. But I wasn't surprised that the jurors wanted to stay. At that point, they were so invested that I thought that they were going to want to stay with Judge Whitaker. What surprised me a little bit, though, is I've seen interviews afterwards where they didn't realize that Judge Glanville had been recused.
Oh, wow.
I thought maybe some medical reason or something.
Right. They heard about the ex parte. So I thought like they kind of understood that. No one stressed it. No one really said anything, but I thought they understood that. But they really didn't understand what happened, which was interesting.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really interesting. Michelle Warden, thank you for becoming a YouTube member. Good night to become a YouTube member and watch these great attorneys, these just incredible attorneys here.
Let me ask you one final question. I keep saying that. We keep saying that, but we could talk to you forever. What can people do? We've talked about the Rice Street situation. We've talked about the DOJ report. What can regular folks do to make their concerns known and in whatever way contribute to fixing that mess?
Well, I think that, there's always a give and take between the Constitution and the presumption of innocence and kind of public safety. My concern about Rice Street, I represent people that are charged with murder for things that have happened like killings that have happened in Rice Street. I would anticipate that a large percentage of the gentlemen in Rice Street have access to shanks, which are just pieces of metal that have been torn off the walls and sharpened. And probably a lot of them don't want shanks, but they don't feel safe without one if everyone else has one. So it's a scary situation. And I just can't help but think that a lot of the, just like we say in prison, that we're making people that are accused of crimes harder by the conditions in the prison. And I can't help but think that we're taking, certainly there are dangerous people in the world, but I think that we might be making some of the not so dangerous people or not at all dangerous people dangerous by making them survive in those circumstances. So we need to figure out a way that we can grant people bond, and there will be mistakes. People that are on bond will commit crimes, but we can't blame the judges because judges are scared. They're scared to grant bond because they're scared of the political backlash and what will happen if they make the wrong call. And I just think we need to accept as a society that everything's not going to be perfect, but we have to live by the presumption of innocence, and we have to give people a chance on bond. And then, Rice Street won't be so crowded, and it'll be a more humane place.
We can hope.
Hope.
Yep. Well,
one day off.
Yeah. Yeah. Now get back to work. You slacker. Well, I hope we can check in with you and see what's happening in the Max Shard world on occasion.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, and this was a great format, and I really appreciate it.
Our pleasure.
Thank you very much,
buddy, and once again, congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All righty, Max Shard, everybody, of course, needs no introduction, and he's got
Perry Mason,
ahead,
Max Shard. Right. I mean, it's going to be his new nickname, Perry Mason, Max Shard. I mean, he and Doug Weinstein and Brian Steele and everybody there, and Mr. Kokumo, everybody has done so much.
Isn't it,
profession, Michael?
It's ironic that as big a mess as that case has been, that it showcased some of the best attorneys, and as you said before, cast a very nice light on defense attorneys for the first time in who knows how long. So that's all great. So that's about it. But I guess I should mention just the Penny case, since we've been spending time on it. No verdict today. A lot of questions, mostly working now on the causation issue, it sounds like. And so it's anybody's guess what's going on. They've had at least, I think, 12 hours, maybe 10 to 12 hours. And the focus has shifted from justification as the defense to what looks like now causation. They were focusing on the definitions of recklessness as it relates to the manslaughter top charge, or criminal negligence, which is the lower charge. Does that mean they're tossing those two back and forth? Who knows? Could mean that just one person is confused and just wants to be sure before they cast the final vote. So they'll be back at it tomorrow.
You've been in the courtroom. You'll be in the courtroom. The jury will be back at it tomorrow.
And I had a couple of notes about stuff I saw. I'm trying to remember. My favorite juror, she had the black beret on today, the older woman. She had the black. She went back to the black beret. Let's see.
What do you classify as the older woman? Okay, we won't go.
Well, yeah. Let me just say that she was a handsome woman. And then
we also have the murder down here. Let me tell you about the murder.
Oh my gosh!
Here.
The
seriously,
healthcare guy.
I don't know if they've caught the guy. They have a picture of him. They have a picture of him in his face is open. So it seems to me it should be soon. I posted on my Twitter account and hashtagged us, Michael, while you were in court, a walkthrough of the scene again today to show you, and it's kind of related to the Penny case, how like New Yorkers went on. And one of the times when I was stopping, kind of like taping, someone was like, "Oh, move on." I mean, just people, we got to move on here. We got to like to walk. I mean, New Yorkers just don't miss a beat. They're just like, just
getting in their way. This crime scene tape's in the way.
Yeah, someone said, there was a murder here. Where? Oh, over there. Oh, okay. Here we are. I told you yesterday people were going under the crime scene tape to bring their luggage,
dragging their luggage in.
So that's New York for you. But we'll keep you. It's a very sad case. It's a very sad case.
It's shocking. We say that a lot, but you see that video. It's shocking.
Shocking.
And the story has not been told yet. And who knows how many twists and turns it's going to take. But
and we'll be covering that.
We'll follow that. As well as a few other odds and ends. So we appreciate
and we hope
joining.
Tomorrow night to have a wrap-up show, right? We'll have to have a week wrap-up show.
Yeah, we'll have to see what happens. We might have a verdict, Penny, a Friday verdict would not surprise me, or some hung jury. And I've been told by those who have been in this judge's court before, Judge Wiley, he's not big on the Allen charge, on the dynamite charge. He will work them over to get a verdict. So we'll see.
Okay. We'll see about that, but we're going to be covering all of it. We hope you join us tomorrow night, probably be at 6:00. We hope earlier on a Friday. We'll try to get a special guest on tomorrow night. And that don't just come for YSL, come for the fact that we're covering crime. And you can see, you never know when a case is going to turn into something that really changes the criminal justice system for the good. And please join we have new members tonight. We'll be posting some more stuff soon, by the way. We need a Mr. Kokumo for this. We need somebody to help us because we can't even find the members page, which at least I can. Michael did.
I found it. Yeah.
You've had it to post. So we're going to be looking for our own Mr. Kokumo to help us. If you're good at this, please, yes, press the like button. Michelle Warden said.
Thanks, Michelle.
It's
Appreciate
free.
that.
Thank you, Michelle. Appreciate it. And we'll be there soon. Don't get mad at us. We'll be there soon. Anyhow.
Okay,
tonight. Why is that?
I don't know why it did that. Maybe because you got in first and I came in second. Is that the way? Because I was just coming off
that's the way it goes.
Off the road. I sat down at 5:57, so I didn't get the good seat. All right, so we'll get back at it tomorrow. In the meantime, I'm Michael Bryant. Try to do the right thing.
And I'm Linda Kenny Bodden. And again, subscribe, like, share, and you'll get notified when we have a podcast. See you tomorrow.